So you've returned to the United States since your treatment in Vietnam was complete. Have you had a chance to go visit U.S. doctors to get an idea of how how things are going? So this is Dan of Vagabond Awake, and you may remember Clifton from a few weeks ago. He got cancer treatment in Vietnam. Well, he's back in the USA now, and he's going to share what the U.S. doctors said about his cancer treatment. But first, I want to ask Clifton to share what it costs to have his broken leg fixed in a Thai hospital. Welcome back, Clifton.
Oh yeah, Dan, super happy to see you. Like big fan of the channel and everything. Yeah, super sure. I'd be happy to tell you about what happened in Thailand. That was just last end of last year. I was riding a motorcycle in front of at Market Village Mall, and I got into an accident and broke my leg. Managed to get to the emergency room at the public hospital. I was thinking, this is going to be expensive. And, I really hope to get through this. And as it turns out, it was only $175, including like crutches and a follow-up visit and everything. And I was quite pleased with that. In the United States, it would have been, God, who knows, $4,000 or $5,000 or more. And I also had one more thing done. You're probably familiar with a PSA count in men. It's a
Yeah,
prostate-specific antigen test.
yeah,
Well,
right,
mine's just been kind of high over the years, so I get an MRI done every 6 months.
right.
And I had it done there in Thailand at the same public hospital. It was $270. Now,
Wow.
it came out that I didn't have any cancer. I was really happy about that. But the same test I had just had done here in the United States was $4,000. I didn't pay that. It was insurance paid for that, but that's what an MRI would cost, and it had exactly the same results.
Wow. That's amazing. That's great. Thanks for
Yeah.
sharing that. A broken leg. Wow, for 175, I would just pay it. I wouldn't even need insurance. And the PSA MRI, wow, that's a great price. Those are two very important things to know because people like to ride scooters. And I get my PSA test done, I like annually just to watch it to make sure if I get prostate cancer. So now, Clifton, you've written a book about beating cancer in Vietnam for 3,100 US dollars that would have cost like 50,000 to 100,000 in the US, possibly even more. So now you sent me a copy of your book and I've read it. And can I ask you a few questions about what you've written in your book? It's a great book, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd be really happy to answer your questions.
So before you left Thailand, you said that you started to feel a little bit of an irritation in the book. You talk about this. You started to feel a little bit of irritation in your throat, and then a little bit tough swallowing. Did you, I have little irritations from time to time. What made you, how did you overcome the denial about, oh, everything is going to be fine. I'm not even going to go to a doctor. Did you have to overcome some denial about the irritation in your throat to get the whole thing started?
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. In Thailand, I thought that it was from spicy food or something, I was like just putting it off. I was like, this will go away. And then when I got to Vietnam, it progressed. And it progressed to the point where I could feel food being blocked. And that's when I knew that I couldn't put it off anymore. I had to go get a biopsy to find out what was going on there. I talk about that pretty in depth in my book, but yeah, I didn't want it to be anything. I had no thoughts of what it may be, but I was having fun. I didn't really want to get involved with a hospital or anything, so I just waited until the last minute. But yeah, that's how that turned out.
And then you said you went to the doctor. This is like the first time you went to a doctor in Vietnam, and they did a biopsy, and then you just took a taxi to the beach and started living your life again. Um,
Yeah.
did you think it was over, or were you worried there might be more to the story at that moment?
That is such a good question because so I went to the family hospital in Da Nang. They're English speaking, they're very friendly, and they got me right to the ear, nose, and throat doctor who sniffed it out, said, okay, we're going to put this in for biopsy. We'll give you a call back as soon as we get the results. So I leave and I go back to my key beach. And, I didn't feel anything at all when I was swallowing. I was really happy. I remember I got a phone call from my family. they were like, what's going on with the biopsy? And I was like, oh, that's yesterday's news. That thing is so gone. I can swallow now. There's no problem, you know? It's like, yeah, I feel back to myself again. I was like, you guys got nothing to worry about.
And then
That's
later in
honestly
the
what happened.
that's great. And then later in the book, you say you got on a Saturday, just maybe the next day or a few days later, you got a call from the hospital. They wanted you to come in on Saturday, and you told them, "Look, I'm enjoying myself. I'll come in on Monday or whatever." And then, um, uh, when you, what made you think? Why were you delaying when they asked you to come in?
Well, I was here at Mikey Beach when I got the phone call. And, I was longboard surfing. I really didn't feel like going in. That's when it was under the conscious level that there may be a problem. And I was not prepared to start that, to have my life changed. I was willing to put it off at any cost. But finally, when I got the phone call from them, and they said, no, you better come in today. Don't wait till Monday. I just jumped in a cab and went over there. I had no choice. I was like, okay, this is going to be something that requires some medical care, but still, I wasn't thinking cancer. I wasn't thinking about, I thought maybe this was going to be something that they have to do something else about, but not cancer.
When you heard the biopsy results in the book, you say the doctor said fast growing, difficult to treat, and low survival rate if you go untreated. Did you think of flying back to America that moment? And family told you that American doctors were the best in the world. What gave you the courage to decide to get treatment in Vietnam?
Well, when I was read the diagnosis, before they did it, they had asked a psychologist to come in and another translator because the doctor that did the biopsy spoke English, but only so good. So when they gave me the news, the psychologist put her hand on my shoulder. And I felt comforted, but at the same time, that's a lot of news, and I thought to myself, wow, fast growing cancer, left untreated, low survivability rate. How long have I had it? I waited until it was literally clogging my throat before I went in. And I thought to myself, go to the United States? I was like, call a doctor, call my primary care physician to get a referral. I was like, it's going to be minimum 2 months before I get in to see anybody. I'll be dead. They referred me to Da Nang Hospital. Of course, I had to process this information. So I took a cab and left with their information. And I went back to my hotel apartment and I thought about it for a while. But I didn't think about going back to the United States. However, I did contact my family and I wanted them to know. And shortly after that, went back to Da Nang Hospital to find out if I could get in to see an oncologist right away.
Yeah, so I think you said in the book it's that Monday after the Saturday, they had already had you in the hospital to talk to an oncologist. When you arrived at the Da Nang Hospital, again, I'm reading my note, I hope that's okay. Not a fancy expat hospital. You mentioned in your book that you felt bewildered and frustrated at first. What was the moment when you decided to trust them with your life, with your treatment? What was that moment like when you were thinking that through?
Well, had I just gone right from the family hospital to Da Nang Hospital, the way the psychologist recommended it, they would have had a transfer ready, I'm sure. But I went home first and then I went to the hospital and I was bewildered because there were not any English-speaking people I could find right away. Although I did find my way and I got into an oncologist Saturday, that day. And I was sitting in front of an oncologist who said, we have to do all these 6 tests to make an accurate diagnosis, but we can do these today. And I thought, wow, this is really intense. It was right about then that I thought, I'm in the right place. I'm talking to the right people. They're willing to help me. They care. I noticed how much they care at the family hospital. This hospital is affiliated. It's got an oncology ward. I'm talking to an oncologist. I thought chemotherapy is a bag. It's not that different. It can be offered here pretty similar as the United States, and radiation therapy. I thought, let's go ahead and hear what this oncologist has got to say. So at that point, my guard was coming down right away. I was feeling much more comfortable talking to this oncologist. So that's about when I left fear. A lot of fear started going down.
Well, that's great. So was that Saturday you made it in there after you called your family back at your place? You
Yeah,
went in. Oh, okay. So in the book you mentioned that you only had $1,000 and you needed an additional 2,800 to cover the 7 weeks of radiation treatment and chemotherapy. How long did it take to your GoFundMe campaign to accumulate the additional 2,800 you needed to save your life?
that's true. There was $1,000 in my pocket when I was talking to the oncologist, and I didn't want to get to that point. I was like, "Oh, let's start the test. Let's do this," you know. And he looked at me and said, "Well, do you have any insurance?" And I said, "I do, but it doesn't cover this." And he said, "Well, what do you have?" And I said, "Well, I have $1,000 right now. I get a Social Security check in about a week. I can pay more then." And somebody in the billing department looked over and said, "Go ahead, bring him in." And I was just so pleased that they went ahead and did all 6 of these tests. And then they came and made the diagnosis. And after the diagnosis was made, I was told that I could pay weekly. I was the estimated cost was going to be 70 million Vietnamese dong, which was about $3,800. And they told me that I could pay $400 a week, and they would take the 1,000 as a down payment. And that was enough for me. I was sold. I was in. They had an Electra radiation machine. It's one of the top end radiation machines. And I was like, I'm going to move forward with this right away, and the doctors were just like, so I went back to my hotel room and I started a GoFundMe page, and I didn't ask for like 70,000 or 100,000. I asked for 3,500 because that's what I felt I was going to need to be comfortable enough to make it. I was going to have to hire some people probably. I was going to need a bigger place to stay. There's going to be transportation to the hospital. So and I was out, I'd already given them my 1,000, so I was out of money. So I started this GoFundMe campaign, and between my close immediate family and my friends, it funded in less than 24 hours. As a matter of fact, there was money transferred into my bank account almost like within 12 hours. And then the GoFundMe campaign matured at 3,500 within 48 hours. I got an email from GoFundMe that says, when it hits that fast, raise the rate, raise the threshold of it. And I didn't even raise the threshold, but people kept giving. I ran it one more time on public page of Facebook instead of just friends and family, and it cleared 4,500 within 48 hours. And then I stopped it. I put an end to it. I was like, that's what I need. I don't need anything more than that. And I think that, I had this thank you page that I followed through with, and it was wonderful. Comfortable. I knew I had treatment coming. I had money in my pocket. Things were going very well.
So you've returned to the United States since your treatment in Vietnam was complete. Have you had a chance to go visit U.S. doctors to get an idea of how things are going?
I sure did. I have been through, the first thing I did was a CAT scan to make sure that my internal organs hadn't been damaged. Totally fine. There's nothing been damaged. And from head to toe, I'm fine. And then the second one, I had to wait a couple weeks because the first one's supposed to be done, MRI is supposed to be done 30 days after the last radiation. So I went in for that MRI. They scheduled it 30 days after. It was nice. I got the MRI. And then I went in to visit the oncologist who looked at it. And he said, "This is all clear." He goes, "Where's the pathology?" And I said, "Well, the only pathology I have is from when they snipped the throat." I said, "Here it is." And he looked at it. He goes, "No surgery?" I said, "No." He said, "Open up, let me take a look." He's like, "Yeah, your throat looks really good." And I said, "My saliva glands are starting to work again." And he's like, "That is really fantastic." He didn't say much more about that, but he said that everything looked fantastic. And, he was just, he didn't say anything too good, but he didn't say anything bad. He said that, you're going to be just fine. He did say it was a bit overkill. He said them using chemotherapy along with 35 treatments of radiation was more than they would have done at the hospital there. But he goes, you probably don't have cancer to worry about. I said, yeah, I was given the option by the oncologist in Vietnam to take an extremely aggressive approach or the normal. And I chose the extremely aggressive approach because I was scared. And they offered it to me and I took it. And so I had the choice and I took the extremely aggressive one. So then the ear, nose, and throat doctor saw me in the United States, took a look at my nose and my ears and everything, and they scoped me out. And when I told him that my saliva glands were working again, he said, they would have to use some kind of target beam radiation to do that. And we don't do that very often here. He goes, they would have to miss your saliva glands in order for that to work. I said, I sat down with my oncologist in Vietnam before they started, and he showed me the plot map on how they were going to do that. They drew circles on the face mask that they bolted my head into the machine with. And that is exactly the treatment that they gave me. And that is exactly why my saliva glands are working already, which is a high-end level of care, not just standard, but high-end level of care. It's fantastic. The ear, nose, and throat doctor was absolutely wowed.
Wow. And did you give an idea what the costs were at all and get a reaction on that?
It would have been clear over $100,000.
No,
I mean, just the 6 tests.
Go ahead. Did you tell them what it cost in Vietnam for all of it?
No, I really didn't want to say a word. I didn't want to say anything because they fit me in their schedule pretty quick, and I didn't want to rub this in their nose at all. These were professionals in America, and I just, I didn't want to look at them and say, look, I had this done for $3,100. I didn't. I just felt that, these guys are meeting me, they're taking care of me. I don't need to demean their practice at all. But that, I was just kind of surprised.
Class act. You're a class act, Clifton. Let's see. So how do people get a copy of your ebook so they'll know how to deal with the emotional and economic costs of being diagnosed with cancer? Well, it's so much cheaper.
It certainly is. I would recommend it to anyone. Well, you can get my book. It's on Kindle, and it's Modest Means Mighty Spirit, Surviving Health Scare Overseas. And you can get the link. I believe you can put the link on your site here, Dan.
I will put it. I'll put it below this video. And by the way, in your book, do you mention the hospital you went to and the family clinic and all that? Is that
it's all there? As a matter of fact, yeah, it's all there.
I know I had that already, but I couldn't remember right now whether or not it's in the book. That's great. So people could actually just go see the same hospital in Vietnam, and so they have a resource for that.
And Dr. Tuan's there, the oncologist, same guy. He runs that oncology ward. I would recommend him to anybody. He's fantastic. Wow. He's not only is he fantastic, he's reachable. He's on the oncology ward. You got a question, you can walk down the hall and talk to him. Try that at a hospital in the United States. See how far that gets you. The oncologists are not on the ward. I mean, they might be on the ward when they're doing their rounds, but after that, they're not there. Yeah. They don't sit there all afternoon long. He does.
Clifton, thank you for emailing me originally. To me, I take a lot of comfort in your experience, and I've talked to a lot of expats who had treatment overseas, but the contrast here is so amazing, and I think it'll give people hope. And I wanted to thank you. I will put the link to your book below in the description, and in the top comment, I'll pin it to the top. People can go over there if they want and check it out and read about it. And I want to thank you again for coming on and sharing some of your experience, so other people who maybe don't have the means otherwise might be able to. This might be an alternative for them. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. That's exactly what I was thinking myself. I would have to share this story so others that are going through something overseas can have some comfort. That the care is available. You just need to go out and find it. It's there.
Could you please help me with something? You've probably watched our guest star interviews on our guest star playlist. I interview people that have retired overseas. They share valuable information such as cost of living, safety concerns, finding love overseas, healthcare experiences, and money problems. If you'd like to share something that you have learned living overseas, please come to vagabondbuddha.com, click the More tab, click the Contact Me tab, and tell me about what you would like to share with my channel.